Just thinking back on my childhood, I basically, as far back as I can remember, I grew up in a Christian household. Both my parents are Christian, and me and my brother and sister, we all grew up going to pretty much the same church our whole childhood. So thinking as far back as I can remember, I remember, praying at a young age, coming to faith in Jesus at a young age, and just being very involved in church. We were going to church twice a week as a family, and I got involved in youth group, and even went to Christian school leading up to high school. So very much modeled, the faith that my parents demonstrated at home. I had a pretty strong walk with God. After high school, beginning of college, my parents and our family stopped going to the church that we more or less grew up going to because of just some falling out and some things that, just some hypocritical behavior that was really disappointing to see. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, like pain in the church. And so that was a little devastating for me because I didn't have a church to call home anymore. And then with the busyness of college, it kind of fell off my radar. And around that time, I also met my son's dad. And, we didn't share the same faith, but in my heart, I was a young teenage girl and I thought I was in love. And, in hindsight, it was much more, having fallen infatuated with somebody. And so I didn't want my faith to be a wedge in our relationship, but I didn't want the relationship to end. So I kind of let my faith take somewhat of a back burner role in my life because I didn't want to break up, basically. So my son's dad and I continued to date through college. And right about the time where I was about to graduate, I ended up taking a trip. And I did some contemplating and just kind of some reflection. And I felt a sense of, prompting, whether it was from the Holy Spirit or just like a conviction that I should end the relationship that I was in because it wasn't helping me grow in my faith. So I came back home anticipating to do that. And to my surprise, I know it wasn't God's surprise, but to my surprise, I found out I was expecting my son. And my heart was to do the right thing and be a family together. And so I shifted my focus to trying to do the best I could to be a good mom and do the right thing that I thought was, in my eyes, was to get married. So I pushed for us to get married, and we eventually did. More or less, I did feel a lot of guilt about having a child out of wedlock. And, I knew that my faith continued to be a wedge in our relationship, but I also didn't want to cause disharmony in our relationship, so I let that continue to stay kind of on the back burner. It's tough. It's tough having a child young. It's tough doing all those things, and my marriage wasn't based on a strong foundation, so it didn't take a long time for the marriage to really fall apart and dissolve. And I just remember feeling at that moment that I was losing everything because I lost basically my marriage. I was facing life as a single mom, a young single mom. I had not pursued or prioritized a relationship with God, so I felt like my faith wasn't even there, and I didn't even know where to go to pick the pieces back up. And I remember very distinctly one night just being so desperate, and I didn't know what to pray. And I just remember crying, and the only prayer I could pray was, God, help me. Because I was not thinking I would get emotional saying it, but I was so lost. And I realized that I needed a faith of my own. I needed that relationship to be real between me and God. And Mike and I we went to the same high school, and I was even part of the Bible study that he had in high school. And I remember recalling that he went to Bible school, and I heard that he was back in town and had started a church. So I found New Day Church when they were at the hotel And at the time I was still trying to get my ground and I wasn't going consistently. But when I went back, I guess, to where they were when they started at the Hall of Fame, I remember being ready for a change at that point. And I remember walking into the theater and the worship music was playing, and for the first few times or a few months even, like, I just remember having a hard time getting through the worship music without getting emotional, because I felt like I had been gone for so long and that I had let my faith fall to the wayside for so long. And I realized how important that was in my life and how badly I really desperately wanted that back, and that relationship with God to be number one again in my life. So really, since then, that was back in 2010, and I've been coming to New Day ever since. And slowly, it was just this process where I felt prompted and invited by God just to take that next step deeper in my faith and in my trust walk with God. And just like New Day says, it's about your time, your talents, and your treasures. And I kept, saying yes to those invitations to do that. And it started with my time. That's where my heart was changing at that time, was to volunteer more of my time, because New Day was making such a difference in my life, and I was being fed so much by what New Day was doing. I genuinely wanted to be part of helping that to continue and helping to be part of, God's hands and feet and the needs that New Day had as a mobile church. I got involved with the tear down team, and then that led to opportunities to get more involved with praying and the host team and leading prayer huddles, and that grew my faith. And God used that even to work on anxiety that I was struggling with just speaking in public. And that was definitely a catalyst in me learning how to trust God with a lot of the things that I was struggling with. And then from there, my heart was changing in the area of my finances. And I genuinely wanted to give with a joyful heart and out of abundance. And New Day had a seminar, the MoneyWise seminar, and I went to that, and that planted a seed in my heart that led ultimately to my complete financial freedom today. And now I have opportunities to feed into others with how that changed my life. And I think it's awesome because in that journey, God used that to birth purpose in my life and what I'm doing. And I found that purpose through that path that I was on. And it's through New Day that kind of all unfolded. And I'm able to use that testimony even in my workplace. It's leading to opportunities in the workplace to be a light and to point people to the same joy that I'm finding with being a good steward of all those things, my time, my talents, and my treasures. And, it really is true what New Day says, like, they're growing disciples, and my path has been a path of growth, and my faith is now very personal. It's not my parents' faith. I'm not just modeling what I know is to look like good behavior on the outside. It's a genuine desire to please God and to honor Him with what I do.